the best of September 2023. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. What an exciting month it was last month. And I'm here this week to give you the best of the entire month of September of 2023. We're going to go back through the releases and we're going to pick our favorite releases from the month of September. So you can sit back, relax, and enjoy what I personally like the most. Here we go. All right, guys, now we're just going to jump right into the best of September 2023. And one of my absolute favorites out of all the stuff that I've gotten this month. I mean, if you've ever been to my shop, you would be kind of overwhelmed at how much stuff is here and how much stuff that we talk about on this channel, how much stuff I fly and review. It's kind of overwhelming to me at times. But the one that stands out to me the most this month, aside from maybe one other quad in this category, would definitely be the Flylens 85 from Flywoo. This quad, I have a DJI 03 on here that I borrowed from the build from the Happy Model 8 that I moved over from the Pico Pavo, and I've just been kind of recycling this VTX and camera unit over from those other two builds because I don't have a bunch of DJI 03s laying around, so I had to use it for this one. And to make the camera fit up here, I had to decase this camera as well. And I just saved a lot of weight by decasing it here. This is built up so that you don't have to decase the 03. You can also fit a Cadex Vista in here as well. So if you're thinking about getting this like as a kit and just building one up yourself, give it a try. Even throw a Cadex Vista in there and you'll love this quad. It is way too much fun to fly. It is probably the best freestyler in this weight category. It's a better freestyler than the Pico Pavo. I would say it's better freestyler than the Mobula 8, and I just love the way it looks. It has the built-in LEDs that are interchangeable. You can change the colors on here. You can put TBS Crossfire on here. You could get the analog version for about $180, and this one, as it sits with DJI and TBS and everything on here, it's around a $400 quad. That's not cheap for this quad, but the fun factor, it's really high because this is the quad. This is the small portable quad that I can take and I can freestyle it anywhere, and I can still come back with some super epic footage because of the Rocksteady 2.0 on here. It looks really nice and flowy, and with this staging up front, and I've talked about this before, Geprc was one of the first companies to, not in the history of drones, but in these smaller Cinewhoops to put stage mini groms. And they did an even smaller version here with this camera. And I just love the way this turned out from Flywoo. I just think it's really cool, really original. The frame, the unibody inverted motors, the whole way this is set up right here is just a lot of fun. And I think it's a great flyer. I love it, and it will freestyle. I just wish it had a little longer flight time. It's probably my only con on this. I need to try some maybe bigger batteries than the 2S 550s. I might even try to do a 650 on here and see what kind of flight time I can get there. But definitely get the UV protector or some kind of lens cover on the front to protect your 03 camera in a frontal crash. And that's probably my other kind of beef with this, is that it does hang out on the front here. There's no camera protection. So if you're looking for something with more camera protection, this is not really the frame kit for you. But as far as fun factor, this one was a 5 out of 5. And I think it wins a lot of design awards for September as well. I just love this kind of streamlined design in here, little thick arms, and everything looks well thought out here. So Flywoo engineers, definitely great work on this one. We love it. And I think a lot of people out there do too. So you can check out the links for this one down below. Let's go ahead and move on to the next in the best of September 2023. Okay, so I am excited to show you this one. If you didn't see this one yet, I don't know where you were. This month was crazy. There was so many iFlight Defenders16 videos out there on YouTube that you almost couldn't miss it. But look at how little it is. Look at how cute it is. It is really well designed. I love the fact that it's a miniature shrunk down version of the 25. It's running 1.6 inch props on here, and we have a 900 milliamp battery, which is getting us a decent flight time. I have also a decased 03 on this one, just like what we had on the Flylens 85 from Flywoo. The only difference is this one shipped with it, and this one I had to build up myself because they sent me all the electronics except for the 03. So I used my own 03 on this one, And if you're talking about flight performance, this one is a cinema quad all day, not really a freestyler. It flew fast around the yard, it tracked really well, and I felt my lines really, really good out in the backyard with this one. It does a great straight ahead, true line. If you're trying to do single shot fly-throughs and things like that, or you want to fly this in like a nightclub or a bar where there's people around, you're not going to hurt anybody with this little guy because it is kind of small. If you caught it in the face, that would probably hurt, but you could come home with some amazing professional videos with the DJI 03 and Rocksteady 2.0 on this quad. So this will be a great little backup indoor single shot fly-through type of quad. It does not have GPS on it. People were asking me if this one has GPS on it, return to home. No, it doesn't, but you don't really need it because this one it's a proximity flyer. But this one's also coming in with DJI 03 on board at around $400 for that quad, but it does come with a nice case. It has a soft zip case here. It's expandable to put the 20 size version in there as well. So if you wanted to have a 20 later, and maybe you got rid of this one, or maybe you have both, I don't know, maybe you have all three. Some guys probably have all three, but I like the Defender16 for the small size, and I love seeing this trend of decased 03s on these super small Cinewhoops. We also have some pretty cool stuff coming down the pipe from a brand new company. I think they're trying to make possibly the smallest DJI 03 whoop on the planet. So as far as bind and fly goes, we're gonna see how that turns out. Hopefully they send us this quad. And let's go ahead and move on to the next favorite of September 23. And the next quad on the bench is another micro. This one's not all super fancy with DJI 03 on board. This one's in fact just an analog ripper. You could rip this one in the backyard. You could take it to a park. You could probably even fly this one in a gymnasium. It is kind of it's basically a stripped down version of a micro brushless on 2S, and it has 2-inch props on here. These are tri-blade. It has this cool aircraft aluminum top plate that kind of slopes back this way. It has a little spoiler on the back as well, which is kind of hilarious. It's running an XT30, and it also has 1000 series motors on there, and I believe it was a Cadex Ant camera in the very back. Yeah, it's a Cadex Ant Eco on there, so it was a decent camera. It was flying pretty well. It's got a unibody on the bottom. It seems to be about 2 millimeter, but I have to say this one was probably my favorite ripper as far as freestyle quad goes. This one pulled off some stuff that you can pull off in the 2S weight category. With a 2S 450, I was having more fun with this quad than some of my larger 4-inch quads out there, just because this one's so quiet. No one really notices that you're just ripping balls out in the park with this. And so if you're somebody who lives in a neighborhood where there's a lot of people around or things like that, you don't want to fly a 5-inch, this one's a lot of fun. Or if you have a cool backyard with a lot of trees and gaps and things, you'll be loving this one. And there are replaceable motors on this one as well. That's one of my favorite things about this. It has an AIO flight controller. It has plug and play motors. So if you do blow out a motor, there's no real motor guard protection around the motors. So, you know, they are sticking out, but they seem to be in the right spot. And I would go with the lower KV version of the motors rather than the higher KV version that they offer. Go for the lower one. I believe it's like 14,000 KV. I can't remember. Just trying to look. And some of the printing on here is so small. 10,000 kV. So this is the 10,000 kV version that I got, and that's the one I would recommend to you guys if you're going to grab one of these lighting. They're called Lighting One quads. Super awesome. ymzfpv just really coming out strong with this release. And these are the guys that I was talking about before that have maybe the smallest DJI 03 tiny whoop out there coming soon. So hopefully they'll send us that for review coming up. They also were nice enough to send us over this M10 GPS that they made as well. This one's available on their website if you want to build up some kind of quad with GPS on it. This seemed to be like probably nicer manufactured than a lot of my other GPS modules laying around. It doesn't feel cheap at all. Has a nice finish on it. And then also a simulator for an FPV simulator that they released that you can hook up ELRS, TBS Crossfire, and even PWM receivers to, and just bind up your radio to this and fly FPV on your computer. So we'll be demoing that one coming up as well. We'll put all the links down below for the ymzfpv releases for September as well. If you want to pick up one of these three or all three of them, that would be awesome. So we're going to go ahead and move on now to the next best of 2023. Now, just as a bonus in this video, I wanted to share this quick information with you, kind of comparison of the last 3 quads that you've seen. This one is the ultimate little freestyler on 2S. This one is all about cinema, and this one is kind of a duality. It'll do cinema and probably the best under 250 gram freestyle of any of these 03 decased air unit type of quads, tiny whoops out there. There's kind of a fad that's out right now for Happy Model 8 and also the Pavo Pico, but the Flylens 85, it's where it's at for FPV freestyle under 250 grams right now with DJI 03 on board. And speaking of freestyle, guys, the Nazgo Evoke F4 6S DJI 03 quad is sitting in front of you right now, and this was probably my largest big field ripper out there on DJI 03. This one came to me, and the first thing I noticed about it was how stout it was. I mean, a 4-inch quad is usually pretty stocky looking. It's a little smaller, traditional long body. We call this kind of the truck bed for a giant battery. But like the Evoke series, this one is completely covered up down the sides, all the way up to the front and the back. We have aircraft aluminum covering up this DJI 03 camera in the very front, and we have a standoff for those frontal crashes just below the camera. So that's pretty amazing. We also can run a full-size GoPro in here. We have motors that can support 4S battery and a 6S battery. So if you got this one and you want to fly 4S on here, you can do that. I felt like this flew fine with the stock and stock props on here. I have a singular antenna in the back, and I'm running dual antenna inside here. That's the DJI 03 setup with the XT60 on an angle back here. I wish this was more straight up because it forces us to bring the battery back. I've talked about that before. I can't stand these angled, and maybe it's the way that these are built in. Maybe the engineers can't quite get it to go vertical, and maybe that's just for possibly trying to save you some damage on that connector if you did have a bad crash back there. This is just gonna bend down, but under there I have my Immortal T as well, and it does have a spot on the back of this. If you want to add GPS on it for some type of return to home, you can also do that. But this one is also a top shelf release in the freestyle category for September 2023. Like the Evoke F4 series, there's also an F5 and F6. So if you want a 5-inch, get the F5. And if you want a 6, you can go up to 6, and you can also get 7-inch as well. So 7-inch are super popular on our channel and very, very popular with the long range crowd. But this one is going to be, I would say, maybe a proximity freestyle quad or proximity cruiser if you want to stay somewhat close in. The flight time on this one, it can be around 6 minutes with something like a 4S 1300 or a 6S 1300 to get you a little more flight time, and probably 6.5 to 7 minute flight time on this one. Now, I think probably one of the products that came out in September that was probably the most like rock and roll industry impacting releases has to be the Radiomaster Pocket. You know, I made my video a while back on this, and I kind of joked that in the title of this video it said, "Don't buy this radio," and that was a joke to the fact that I'm still using my Radiomaster Boxer. So you kind of wonder why did Justin say don't buy this radio? Well, because you should buy a Boxer. I like it better. That's my opinion. I don't always say everything's the best, so people that think that obviously don't watch my videos. So the Radiomaster Pocket, I said don't buy it, but what it's really for is it's for people who are on a budget. If you don't want to spend $100 on a Boxer or $150 on a Boxer, you can spend $55 on a Radiomaster CC2500 version. That's a 4-in-1 version that supports about, I'd say, around 20 different protocols. You can also get the ELRS version, which I think is a great version, and it doesn't have the amount of milliamp in this one. The power is not as much as something like the T20 or the Boxer, but it will do for some proximity flying. But if you want to expand on that as well, you have this micro TX bay back here, so you can expand this and you can put a miniature crossfire module in here, and then you can do some pretty decent, I would say medium range type of flying with the TBS crossfire micro in there, or you can expand it to an ELRS module if you're running the CC2500 version. But then you've got some range out of a tiny little cheap radio. It also comes with Hall effect gimbals on there. It has this clear case, LED lights, and it also supports Edge TX on this, and 32 channels. So it's a great little radio, and it's not my number one choice as far as what I would be flying. If I go out flying right now, you know, I'm telling you, I'm going to take my Radiomaster Boxer out with me. That's just my go-to with my full-size module bay on the back. But this one is great for people that are on a budget. So I definitely think that it's one of the best releases of September 2023 if you're on a budget. So the big brother to the Radiomaster Pocket was the Jumper T20 that came out, and this one I liked for a lot of reasons. First off, it feels better in my hands. It's wider. It's the same width as a regular standard radio, something like my Boxer. I would say a mid-size radio. It's not as big as the T16. It's actually a little skinnier than a T16, but I said it was like a Boxer chopped in half. It has the same width here, but it feels great when you're holding it, and it has a good weight to it. It doesn't feel cheap, and it's really well made. Amazing gimbals on here, and it also has an expansion bay, and it will do up to 1 watt on here. So this one's much more powerful. It is more expensive, but if you don't mind spending in the $100 range, this will get you a lot more options and expandability for later, and probably run a little bit longer. But even though this one does 1 watt, they both can handle full-size 18650 batteries, which is also great. A lot of people didn't like the Radiomaster Zorro because those had a much smaller battery and only about 2-hour runtime, whereas these will give you full runtime and definitely a full day's flying, so that's kind of nice. I like the fact that they also offer Edge TX as native on this particular transmitter, and right now I'm flying it for a brand new twin-engine FPV plane that I have returned to home and a flight controller on. So I just took a little red paint right here and put my RTL stick there. They also make some pretty cool radio stick covers that you can get from Radiomaster. There's some little silicone sleeves that stick over, and they're actually labeled like fly mode, return RTL, and things like that. So that's kind of a cool thing to look out for. I'll try to find the link for that and put it down there for you. But the Jumper, for me right now, it's kind of trying to get the pole position in my shop as my daily driver, and so far I'm flying my FPV planes on it, and it feels like a real full-size radio. When I showed this off to the guys at Rotor Riot at the Rotor Riot event here recently, everyone flocked over to this radio to check it out, because in person, the first words that I hear, even at the Drone Camps event for FPV West, people walked up to the bench, and I had this one and the Pocket sitting out because a lot of people hadn't seen it in person, and a lot of people thought this one was just really cool looking. That the T20 was something to talk about. It had a lot of people talking and wanted to pick it up and hold it and feel what it feels like in their hands. A lot of people were really impressed by this release. So as long as the mechanics hold up, and you know, the 1 watt is also proving to be a little bit further range than Radiomaster Pocket, but also a little bit more money. If you don't mind spending a little more money, I think you'll like the T20 a little bit better. But it doesn't beat out the Radiomaster Pocket as far as the options that you can get for around a $50, you know, $55 price point. But I leave that up to you with your budget. Now, last but not least for September 2023 is the Geprc FPV racing drone. This one, it comes in only an analog version, and I'm not sure yet that they're going to make a DJI version. Maybe in the future. What they would have to do though is remove the 2-up stack here, and they would have to put an AIO in here. Maybe with a decased 03 you'd have enough room in there, but they have kind of a lowrider top plate with 4 bolts on top to release it. But what's significant about this release is the size of it. I mean, look at this in comparison to the F4 here from iFlight. I mean, this is a 4-inch quad that's meant to be a durable freestyler. It has all the armor and protection on here, and this one is completely stripped down race machine. And this one, people asked me a bunch of questions about the design of this one, and a lot of people left comments after replies to people's comments and why they did this and why they did that on this Geprc racer. And the number one thing about FPV racing is weight reduction. So the more you reduce the weight, the more power to weight ratio, the higher the power weight ratio goes up. So this one's going to fly much faster than the iFlight F4 series. It's just going to be way faster, and it's amazing to me that it's almost the size of, it's 208 millimeter wheelbase on here. It's almost the size of just a little bit larger than a 4-inch frame size there. Look at that, just a little tiny bit wider. And so that's pretty impressive that Geprc was able to strip down a frame this lightweight. They did weight reduction in the back with this antenna, a little stubby in the back. They still kept the full size XT60 here for 6S rip and power, and they're using the Geprc 2207 motors on here, and full lens protection up front for the frontal crashes. But one of the coolest features that I thought about this quad was not only is it like 100-mile-an-hour bind and fly, it has replaceable arms on here that are a 1-bolt release. So what you do is you take out this bolt right here and you just loosen this center bolt a tiny bit, and if you're in a race and you need to pull out this arm and put on a new arm, that's a 1-bolt release. Basically, you leave the center bolt in there, just loosened a little bit, take that bolt out, boom, the whole arm comes out, and you can put a new arm on this quad. So for people that need to work on their quads quick and get back in the race, that's kind of cool from Geprc. And I have to say the tune on here is great because Geprc has their own racing team, and so those guys tested the prototypes for the racer. They talked about it with me during the development of it, and when it finally came to me, it was ready to rock. And from the footage you guys are seeing in this part of this video, yeah, it's extremely fast. I wish I had a course to be able to fly on it, but I'm not really an FPV race guy, but I do know a great racer when I see it, and it flies way different than an FPV Freestyle Drone. It doesn't have a whole lot of floaty feeling to it. It just flies really fast, and you can see that on like the tree dives and stuff like that with the Geprc racer. It's a complete speed demon. It is super quick. All right, guys, so that's our little family there on the bench for September 2023. This was a fun month. We had a lot of new stuff come out. I love the new focus on sub 250G DJI quads, and also giving alternatives to DJI, because I think there should definitely be some competition for DJI. I love the developments lately on HD Zero and Walk Snail. So those are becoming more and more popular all the time, and they're not as expensive as the DJI counterparts. So I'm interested to see what happens next. We have some new Walk Snail stuff coming down the pipe, and I can't really tell you what that is yet, but I'm sure you have an idea. They're going to release some pretty cool stuff coming up. So Walk Snail may be gaining some traction in our community, which I think that's great. DJI needs some competition. Their stuff is just too good, and it's a lot of times plug and play. So yeah, and it just works great. And the 4K DVR with DJI 03 and now DJI 04 is coming out. My God, who's going to beat DJI? I don't know, but I'm glad that Walk Snail exists. So I have to say that, and I have to also say that I'm glad to see that Geprc is back in the game making the T20, because I think that's a really important release. I love that kind of half of a boxer chopped in half, and I think that Radiomaster also just like completely opened up the cornucopia of FPV for the community of people that need a cheap radio but has full function to it. So I think it's portable, it's cheap, and it has a pretty full function as far as everyday use goes. Not really so much for a long range type of radio, but you can pretty much fly anything on this. Planes, you can do an RC crawler on this, you can do FPV race quads, Cinewhoops, whatever you want. You get the ELRS version or the CC2500 version or the JP 4-in-1 version. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I like the detachable gimbals. So they thought about traveling with that. That's very similar to DJI's like Mavic radios that they made for years. But I like all of the new releases here on the bench. As far as the racer, we have the 2S Freestyle in the sub 250G category. I love this category that's coming out. This is the straight ahead Cinewhoop right here, the Defender16. And one of the coolest left field freestylers that I didn't see coming was this new company YMZ. So I got to give props out to whoever the CEO of YMZ is. Thank you for creating an FPV company and supporting what we love, because a lot of these companies have died off in the past couple years, and I haven't seen new releases from some of the standard companies in quite a long time. So it's awesome to see that some new companies investing money into the FPV hobby. That's great. iFlight also continues to dominate with their releases. They make some really solid, out of the box, flyable quads and enjoyable designs and original designs. So I think all these companies are kicking butt in September in the third quarter of the year. So fourth quarter coming up, we'll see how October, November, and December does, and I will keep you posted on the new reviews, guys. Please do stay tuned. Join our Discord for FPV Pilot Talk. There's like 1,200 pilots in there talking FPV 24/7. And also check out the Facebook link down below for FPV West. FPV West is a brand new drone camps meetup where you can come out and fly with other pilots, make friends, hang out, listen to some tunes, and you can fly anything at those events. FPV wings, planes, race quads, and FPV freestyle quads. Whatever you want to bring out, just bring it out. All are welcome, all ages, and we have a ton of fun. So that's coming up in October. It's going to be our Halloween costume version of FPV West. Come out with your best costume, fly in costume, and the best costume at the end of the day is going to win an award, and they're going to win, probably going to take home a drone for that award. So dressed in your best costume, and I will see you in late October for FPV West number 2. Number 2 is here already, guys. I love meeting you guys in FPV West number 1. So I look forward to the second event coming up, and we'll hope to see some sponsors giving away more prizes in that event as well. But I appreciate all you guys. Stay tuned on the channel for what's new coming up, the new reviews. I will bring them to you right here on the Drone Camps channel, guys. Take care, and I will see you on the next one.